Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about The Scarlet Letter, written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, before we go into the summary and analysis of this novel, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. Now, this novel is based off of a true story. Nathaniel Hawthorne, this novel takes place in the 17th century in a Puritan colony, and the Puritans were people that did not play with religion. They followed the Bible to the letter. They followed the Bible to the T. And so, if you were a woman that committed adultery, they killed you. You know, you face capital punishment. And so, actually, you can do some research on this. You actually can look at this online, where there's a lot of people, or a number of people that they killed for committing adultery in the Puritan colonies. So this story, we get it from Nathaniel Hawthorne. He basically tells us the story about Hester Prynne, and how she faced this charge of adultery and how she dealt with it. In the beginning of the novel, we learn that Hester is from England. She's a beautiful woman, and she has a husband by the name of Roger Prynne, who later changes his name to be Roger Chillingworth. He doesn't legally change his name, he just changes his name to Roger Chillingworth so that he can find out certain things that happened to his wife. So at the beginning of the novel, Roger sends Hester to the Americas. She lands in Massachusetts. He's supposed to be following her, but she arrives, and several months go by. A lot of time goes by, and he never shows up. And everybody in this Puritan colony, and even Hester herself, believes that Roger's dead. And that's a reasonable assumption, because in the 17th century, you're traveling by ship, and you're not traveling by the best ships. So you could die at sea, you could die during a storm, you could die of disease. There's several ways you could die during the 17th century. And the thing is, he didn't die at sea. When he reaches the Americas, what happens is he gets captured by Indians, and they kind of treat him nicely. They even teach him how to heal people with Indian medicine. So during all this time, Hester is in Massachusetts. She thinks that her husband is dead, so she gets into this relationship with Arthur Dimmesdale. Now, Arthur Dimmesdale is this minister. His church loves him. They think he's holy. He delivers great sermons, great messages. Everybody likes to go to see him preach and tell them the word. And he knows a lot about sin. And he kind of talks to them as if he knows exactly what they're going through. So a lot of his congregation relate to him, and they see that they feel that he's an important and holy man, but it's not that true, because Hester Prynne has this affair with Arthur Dimmesdale, and she gets pregnant. And when this becomes a reality, when everybody in this colony see that Hester is pregnant, she gets sentenced to jail. She spends a few months in jail. She gives birth in jail to her daughter Pearl. And kind of at the beginning of the novel, we see her on the scaffold where everybody is shaming her. Everybody's telling her how horrible she is, how dare she commit adultery, and they keep telling her, we want to know who you did it with. We want to know who you slept with. Who's the father of Pearl? But she won't say. She takes her punishment. She stares at the crowd. They stare at her. They judge her. They speak in all types of ways about her. She's just the town gossip, and everybody's just speaking badly of her. Her husband shows up at this point, and her husband changes his name to Roger Chillingworth here. And he kind of goes, he becomes this town's doctor, and everybody recognizes him as a doctor there. And while all of this is happening and throughout the novel, we kind of see Arthur Dimmesdale. He starts to become very ill. He's very sick. But the thing is, like, he doesn't have a quote unquote disease. We're kind of told that, it's because of the guilt that he feels, that he's preaching and he's delivering these wonderful sermons, but at the same time, he committed adultery and he's hiding it from the people. And so the guilt and the shame and just the bad conscience of all that he's done, it's weighing on him and it's making him ill, it's making him sick, and he just can't take it. And in the novel, he's like pounding his chest or pounding at his heart, and he's just becoming weak. So in this novel, emotions kill. Emotions can be very dangerous. What ends up happening is that he's so sick. Arthur Dimmesdale is so sick that um, Roger, this town's doctor, Hester's husband, goes to live with him, and they live together. And Roger's keeping an eye on Arthur Dimmesdale. Now, keep in mind that Roger Chillingworth has this assumption that Arthur Dimmesdale slept with his wife and got his wife pregnant. And now Roger Chillingworth is taking care of Arthur Dimmesdale. And while Arthur Dimmesdale is on his deathbed, basically, or he's sick, Roger Chillingworth is kind of like mentally torturing him, mentally abusing him, telling him, in subtle ways how horrible he is, how sinful he is, how he's done certain things that are not particularly good, and things that a minister shouldn't do. At a certain point, Roger Chillingworth even tells Arthur Dimmesdale that maybe there's something you need to confess. And Roger Chillingworth's ideas about Arthur Dimmesdale comes somewhat true when he takes a look at Arthur Dimmesdale's chest, and Chillingworth finds this A on his chest, which kind of stands for adultery. So Roger Chillingworth just keeps torturing him and mentally attacking him, and trying to get at his conscience and trying to make him feel bad. And it's working. The more and more Roger Chillingworth is doing this, the more and more Arthur Dimmesdale is becoming more ill. In the community, Hester is still being judged. Everybody don't, no one likes her. At a certain point, the townsfolk, the Puritans, say we should take Pearl away, because how can we let this adulteress, how can we let this woman take care of this her daughter? She can't take care of her daughter. She's a sinner. We're perfect. She's not. She's a sinner. We should punish her. We should take her only daughter away. And at this point, Hester has to go to the governor and beg the governor to not take her daughter away and give her daughter to an adopted family. And Hester goes to Arthur Dimmesdale, and she begs Arthur Dimmesdale to speak on her behalf to the governor, to let her keep her child. And they eventually do let Hester keep Pearl. And Pearl is an interesting character because she doesn't shy away from the matter. It's not revealed that she completely understands adultery and what her mother did, but she understands that everybody, looks down on her mother, then that the crimson red letter A on her mother's chest symbolize something that's bad, symbolize something that she did, and it's reflected in many things. At a certain point, and when you're reading the novel, it's kind of portrayed that even Pearl is a symbol, is the A, because she is the result, she is the product, she is the sum of adultery, of what the sin that took place between Arthur Dimmesdale and Hester Prynne. So Hester Prynne, she gets permission from the governor to keep Pearl, and she lives out in this cottage by herself, like on the outside of town where nobody can live with her. But the thing is, like, throughout the novel, she's doing a lot of great things. She's making clothes for the Puritans. She's helping the sick and the people who are dying. Whenever somebody's dying, she's there to help them. She's there to take care of them. So this woman who's being judged, who's being cast, who's being portrayed as a horrible person for sinning, for committing adultery, she's doing the most good because she's making clothes for the poor. She's helping the poor. She's trying to do all that she can to make everybody live better, and feel better, and to comfort people even while they're ridiculing her and judging her. So the novel goes on, and at a certain point, Hester does confront Roger Chillingworth. She tells him that I didn't really love you and that you've become a monster. And Roger Chillingworth, he says, "Yes, I am a monster. I've accepted it." And he keeps torturing Arthur. And this just keeps going on to the point where Hester Prynne and Arthur Dimmesdale, they say that we should run away together. And at a certain point, they agree to run away together so that they can have somewhat of a perfect family between Hester Prynne, Arthur Dimmesdale, and Pearl. They can have a family together. But the thing is, Pearl doesn't accept this because Arthur won't publicly acknowledge that he has a part in their family in public. Whenever they're in public, Arthur Dimmesdale stays away from Hester and Pearl. But when they're in private, he kind of wants to get closer to them, and Pearl doesn't want that. Pearl wants him to accept her mother and her everywhere. So Pearl doesn't really she doesn't really go with Arthur Dimmesdale with this idea of running away. But through her actions, she's a child. She's not going to confront them about it. But through her actions, you can see that she doesn't like Arthur Dimmesdale because he's trying to hide this sin. He's trying to hide from her and her mother. So this election day comes forward, and Arthur Dimmesdale kind of delivers. This is after they've planned to run away. They still had the plan on the books. They were gonna get a ride on this ship, and they're gonna leave Massachusetts and find a different place where they can be a family. The plan was put together. It somewhat looks dark because on this same boat we hear that Roger Chillingworth is going to be on it too. So this kind of worries Hester, when because she in her mind she's going to have this family, and be happy. But the fact that we hear that Roger Chillingworth is going to be coming along too, that kind of puts some darkness on it. So Arthur Miller, during election day, he kind of gives this wonderful sermon, and everybody. And if you've ever been to church, when people get that church fire and they're hooping and hollering at church. When the sermon is that good, people are screaming, people are catching the soul, and they're getting into it. It's all great, and even though Arthur Dimmesdale is kind of saying that he's a sinner and that he's done sinful things, they don't care because this makes him more human. This makes them more closer to their reality. And so he's saying that he's a sinner. They're loving it. He finishes up the sermon. It's like the best sermon that everybody's ever heard. And it's pretty much the sermon before he dies, because after this, he goes up on the scaffold, which is conveniently located near the church. He goes up on the scaffold where they usually put people to be punished, to be publicly humiliated. He goes up on the scaffold. He takes Pearl. He takes Hester. They're all up there, and he confesses his sin. He says that he's a sinner, that he's a man that's done bad things. He shows his chest in this letter A that's on his chest. We don't know if he painted it on his chest. We don't know if he carved it into his chest, or if it's God himself that's writing the letter A on his chest. And then he kind of asks Pearl, "Do you accept me now? I've publicly showed that I'm a sinner, that yes, I am your father, that yes, I committed adultery with your mom." And Pearl kisses him, and he dies on the spot on the scaffold. So that's the end of his story. And Roger Chillingworth, having tortured this man for a very long time, and having gotten his revenge, which, it's kind of messed up that he never showed up. You know, there's a lot there too. So Roger Chillingworth dies. Arthur Dimmesdale dies. Um, and that's the end of their story. We later learn that Pearl grows up. Roger Chillingworth left Pearl a lot of money, and so Pearl grows up. She gets married. She's very rich. She has a happy life, and we hear that after a while, Hester Prynne comes back to Massachusetts, comes back to this colony, and she lives out in her cottage on the outskirts of town, and she continues helping people, wearing her A around, and she keeps on helping people and helping the sick, helping the poor. And that's pretty much the end of her story. And by the end, people don't the people of the town don't hate her anymore. They don't see her as a sinner, as somewhat. And she becomes this woman that a lot of other women come to for advice of how to live their lives and things that they're going through, because that's just who she becomes. So let's talk about the analysis. Let's talk about the importance of the story. This novel has a lot to say about women and about how society often looks at them, especially in the Puritan through the Puritan lens. I mean, still today in 2020, in the 21st century, women are being judged for how they dress, how they look. If they're being promiscuous, they're called certain types of names. If they do this and that, if they dress with scantily clad clothing, they're judged for that. And so women have been judged for what they wear, how they dress, how they behave around men and around other women for centuries. And Hester Prynne in this novel, she kind of takes this all. She doesn't shy away from it. She wears her A on her chest, and she deals with it the best that she can. She raises Pearl by herself, and she refuses to tell who the husband is. She doesn't. She's not trying to air her business out for the community. And even though that they kind of push her away to live in a cottage by herself, they need her because she ends up helping a lot of them. She ends up helping the sick, helping the poor, helping a lot of people. And the other thing is, she creates clothes. She makes clothes, and a lot of them buy clothes from her. That's why, through several points throughout the novel, a lot of people start to think that the A stands for angel, or able, or a person who is there to provide, a person there to help them out. And it's kind of interesting from my perspective. It's kind of like, in of a way, she's like this hero, because only heroes have symbols on their chest, and you have this woman, living throughout this community where everybody knows her story, and she has this A on her chest, and she's helping people. That's kind of like, she's not quite a hero. She doesn't have superpowers, but it's kind of, from my perspective. Well, sometimes I have crazy perspectives, but that's her story. That's what she does. Her story ends, and there's a lot we can see here. We can talk about that say a lot about our society. One of the things is that the Puritans, they judged her, they ridiculed her, they talked about her life, they gossiped about her life. But the thing is, like, they're doing the same thing. Um, the Bible kind of has this central idea that everyone's a sinner. Just because your sin is not out in the open, that doesn't mean that you're pure. It's kind of funny that the Puritans even called themselves Puritans, because the central idea of the Christian religion is that no one is pure, no one is perfect, no one is sinless. Everybody has done something that goes against the word of God, that goes against being holy. So everybody has something or has done something that goes against their religion. Even a white little lie is considered a sin. So no one can be perfect within the Christian religion. It's only through their Savior that they can be saved. That's the whole principle. So they're judging her, but at the same time, she's doing the most good. She's actually repenting. She's actually facing the things that she's done wrong, and she's trying to live the best life that she can through them. So they judge her, but she's the only true Christian. And from my perspective, she's the only true Christian amongst them because she is facing and dealing with her sins and the things that she's going through. So that's the Scarlet Letter. That's one idea of the message that it delivers. It says a lot about women and what they go through and how they can be judged and how they can get through it because Hester doesn't go through this crying. She goes through this with the idea that she was going to make it through it and live the best possible life that she can. Even when they shunned her, even when they pushed her aside, she was going to live her life. She was going to help people, and she was going to take this proudly because even when she was standing on the scaffold, she was looking at them, they were looking at her. She made her decisions and she was willing to live with it and she was willing to deal with it. So that's my summary and analysis of the Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment. We're about to reach that 1,000 subscriber mark, so hit that subscribe button and I'll see you guys on the next video.